I suppose the first question is, what do we call you now? Are you an influencer, creator, vlogger? What's the terminology like?
Look, I think creator sounds a little bit more tasteful, but I very much still respond to influencer as well. Yeah, I think it really just depends on who's asking, maybe.
And what do you wish brands understood about working with creators like yourself that they perhaps don't?
Yeah, look, I think, and I can only go off my experience, I've been doing this for about 4 years now. I think, and what I've learned along the way is people don't like to be sold to, and authenticity is so incredibly important for consumers. And I think whether I'm working with a brand on a paid partnership or just like a contra collab where it's just a gifting, it's really important to remain that authenticity because people, like I said, don't want to be sold to. And I think with brands, they need to put trust in the creator, allow us to have a little bit of creative freedom. We know our audience best.
You said that people don't like to be sold to, but the brands that you work with are obviously expecting some kind of return. How do you demonstrate the value that you can give to a brand through working with you?
Well, the beautiful thing is we have our metrics, we have our stats, so brands can see our reach, our impressions, they can see how many times a post has been shared or saved, and they can also have access to our comments. If they want anything else, we can also provide our demographics, so they can see our age demographic, where majority of our audience reside. Is it in Australia? Is it in America?
I suppose kind of what I'm looking to get at here, Steph, is more when you're working with a brand, they're not coming to you being like, right, we're looking for a kind of sales uplift here by a factor of 10% or whatever. That's not the sort of information and return that you would provide as a creator?
No, nothing's guaranteed. I think as a creator, you are providing foot traffic. You have trackable links, so they can give us a link that is specific to our platform, so they can see how many people are clicking on that link. We're providing brand awareness and really getting their name out there.
Recently, the ACCC kind of conducted a sweep of influencer posts looking for people that hadn't marked them correctly if they were an ad or gifted. And they found in a kind of a lot of segments that there was foul play at work. Is that something that was concerning, perhaps not for yourself personally in your business, but something that concerned you about the health of the industry? And how are you seeing other influencers kind of respond to that extra scrutiny?
Yeah, look, I personally don't feel the scrutiny, to be honest. I understand why the ACCC are doing what they're doing to protect consumers, right? And I think there needs to be that transparency. I think we need to be honest when things are at a paid capacity, because that too creates trust. And being transparent with our audience and with our community, it builds that trust. And I think it's great because it opens up conversation about influencing and what goes on behind the scenes.
I suppose one of the kind of perennial questions that people have about influencers and creators is whether you will just promote anything for a price. I'm guessing your answer is you're not going to be doing that.
No.
What would cause you to say no to a brand? Is it just whether it would resonate with your audience, or would you look deeper into kind of ethical issues around brand perhaps?
Definitely. I think for one, it has to align with me, but also too, there's lots of times where I've loved a product, but do I think it's going to add value, or do I think my community is going to benefit from this? For example, I love going fishing on the weekend, right? Like when my partner gets the fishing rods out, we love to. However, my audience is very much around everyday life, which yes, that is a part of my everyday life, but very much around motherhood, and I just don't think that would really align with them. And it's not fair to the brand either.
I suppose for some fishing brands, you'd probably seem a bit of a catch, wouldn't you?
That was a good one.
I guess the final question, Steph, from me is you, your focus is kind of motherhood, and you have a family of three young children. What's the long-term strategy for when they grow up? Are they going to become their own influencers? Are you going to create a little influencer network?
No, look, it's still an area that I'm navigating for sure. I am very honest with my kids. I think the world we're in now is it can be a really scary place, but it is what it is. And I think we can't hide our kids from that. I think it's more so creating a foundation where when they do grow up and have a social media platform, you know, they're confident, they have good self-esteem, and they make the right decisions.
Creators, influencers, vloggers, what's the correct term?
Oh, creators for me. I feel like there's just been, you know, so much stigma behind the word, you know, influencer, and creator, I feel kind of just encompasses what they do.
So you're a senior account manager here at Social Soup. What does a typical day look like? And then how do you explain your job to your parents? How do they tell their friends what a senior account manager here gets up to?
Yeah, I mean, my day's pretty busy. I think most of it for me is client management. So I spend the day mostly on the phone to my clients, just, I guess, chatting them through how our campaigns work, what the process is, you know, what's working well, what can we optimize, what's the next step. Apart from that, it's a lot of collaboration with my team, making sure things are on track. In terms of explaining what I do, a bit of a fun one, I say I build connections between brands and their consumers online through influence.
And does that cut through to the parents?
No, I always get the follow, what is that? What is influence? What is the power of influence? And I think the easiest way I can explain it is just, as people, we inherently want to belong, we want to follow each other.
What trends should brands be looking out for when they're trying to create content with influencers, when they're, you know, what's the hot thing at the moment?
This always comes up, and a lot of people are like, you know, what's viral, what's going on at the moment? And I think for me, the big one right now is partnerships and working long term with creators. You want to create that relationship with them. And that's all about creating authenticity and collaboration. So if a creator is working with a brand long term, it's just saying that that creator and that brand trust each other. There is authentic recommendation there. They truly believe in what, in that partnership, what they're working with, and that cuts through to their audience.
And when you're working with your clients, how do you demonstrate the kind of tangible results and you know, performance that they would get from working with a creator? Because reach and engagement, they're lovely, sure, but I mean, at the end of the day, people have got to make money, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think reporting is definitely one of the things I love most about a campaign. It's understanding why something worked, why it didn't. For me, I look a lot at, you know, those engagements. What are those engagements? What are people actually commenting on that post? What are they saying? Are these comments relevant to the product that creator is speaking about? Is it about what they've created?
What's the best experience, but more importantly, what's the worst experience you've had with a creator? You don't need to name names.
No, probably won't. Best experience is when creators are given a lot of freedom to create their content. You know, often we find brands giving creators such a rigid brief and there is no room to move to get creative. So when they do have that freedom, they can think outside the box and they come up with ideas that we wouldn't necessarily have. And then on the flip side, again, as you can see where it's going, the brands who, you know, really want to hold on to that control. It just makes it a lot more tense for everybody involved, from the brand to the creator to us, and trying to manage all of those expectations. And I think sometimes it is also creators who don't do that due diligence of knowing that product. Sometimes they see a big name and they're like, oh cool, I really want to work with them. But then they might not align with the product, and, you know, sometimes tensions can arise there as well. So, yeah.
So we've got no kind of prima donna influencers making ludicrous demands.
No, I think influence has come a long way, and I think a lot of the creators out there do only work with products that they personally align with. I just took the Dodgy's nibble.
I guess my first question is, what sort of culture are you trying to build here, and how does Social Soup differ from other influencer or creator agencies, as they might be now? And how does it differ from traditional kind of media, marketing, advertising agencies?
Well, I guess the first thing to mention, that Social Soup, being independent, really has been able to be very specific about how we've built our culture over the last 16 years. And what I would say the defining feature of it is it's all about people. In fact, one of our values is people at the heart. And when we say that, it's not kind of a throwaway. You know, the channel that we work in, the medium that we work in, is people, and it's about creating meaningful connections. I think that was the first kind of mission from the very beginning, was how we create meaningful connections. The real marker of that, particularly for our team, is we really empower everybody. Everyone in the seat in here has the opportunity to fundamentally change the future of the business.
Are creators better for, helping brands build just their brand image and that sort of thing, or are they actually better at, influencing and driving performance at bottom line sales? Where do you see that kind of falling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because everyone's always looking at where that sits, and I think the answer is more complicated than that. It's both. It really can flex to do either of those things, and I think, as Katie said, there's a number of different dimensions to influencer marketing. You're working with bigger creators, you're looking at really high alignment of their values and their personality, because they're part of representing your brand. It's almost like the new type of ambassador, where I think people used to use ambassadors in their marketing, and it was about putting them in, their sort of paid media, but now the influencers have their own distribution channels. So it's about finding the right people that will build your brand. And then at the performance end, you're looking at influencers that have a really close connection. We often work with more micro creators in that perspective. And I think what they're really good at is creating content that will convert. And that's much more testimonial style, that's much more review style.
One of the kind of on vogue mediums, I guess, for creators to reach their audience is short form video. Instagram has obviously got Reels, and then there's TikTok. What do you think a potential TikTok ban would mean for the creator economy? And do you think the ban is likely? Are you worried?
Look, we're not worried here. I don't think there's a ban that's going to happen in the near future for TikTok. I think what we need is more regulation and education. And I think that will happen, and I think that will come, and I think we've got the ACCC with the digital platforms review at the moment, so I think there'll be more findings that come about that. If there was a TikTok ban, I think TikTok at the point, as it was in the point in time through COVID, it really did evolve influencer marketing. I think it really increased the creativity and the short form content, and I think it really just democratized it even more. And I think what TikTok changed also was it wasn't just who you were following, right? It became a search channel. So it's what people are searching for, and you're finding that content, or that content's finding you, like in the algorithm. So I think TikTok style is here to stay. So whether there was a TikTok ban, something in the social ecosystem would replace it. So I don't think it's going to go away.
And our biggest thing is never plan around a platform, always plan around an audience.
You brought up the ACCC earlier. Obviously, alongside the digital platforms review, they conducted a sweep of influencer posts and found some less than stellar due diligence at play there. How much do you communicate the expectations from groups such as the ACCC to the creators that you work with and the brands, and how much oversight do you have of the content that comes out?
Extreme. It's a look, anything, as Sharyn mentioned, anything to do with the ACCC and new regulations, disclosure, guidelines, everything that's come out with finfluencers, TGA, all of this kind of, tighter scope on what influencer marketing is only inherently positive, because it is still true that there are some influence cowboys out there that are doing kind of rubbish influence, some bad actors. Super transactional.
Can we name names?
No, we can't name names. I'll tell you later. Pretending that they're not selling a product, but they are being engaged with the brand. And that kind of diminishes what the power of this channel, whichever platform you use, can have. So all of these kind of regulations are only super positive, super authentic, and safeguard it for the future. In terms of social soup, we are extremely transparent around how the disclosure needs to live in creators' posts. It's there in all of our briefing documents. We have individual briefings. Our clients are across that. And we have not only technology, but humans monitoring that disclosure, not only before it gets approved to be posted, but we do consistent sweeps of our content to make sure that that's still there at 3 to 6 months. So.
Yeah, and following best practice. You know, we as an agency, we've always led that.
Yeah.
I was previously chair of AIMCO, the Australian Influencer Marketing Council. Hey, Katie sits on the best practice group. So we're very much a part of building the industry and really making sure that we have that best practice.
How do you demonstrate, you know, actual tangible ROI to brands from working with influencers?
Yes, so there are a couple of things that we need to consider with that. First of all, it's going all the way back to the start of any influence program that you create, which is all around the planning of what outputs you want to achieve. And that can be very different depending on the program. So it might be markers around awareness, action, conversion, reviews, trial. There's lots of different facets that we would look to create metrics around depending on the plan. When we move through that stage, the most important thing is there's not one silver bullet metric for influencer marketing. You have to create systems of measurement around what you are trying to prove out. So it could be around the engagement of a post, the click-through of a post, the awareness. But increasingly for us, and it's something we're about to embark on partnering with Pollinate under the Influence Group, is truly understanding how do conversations travel in the real world. So if you try a product, how do you then engage your networks? How do you have conversations? How do you pass that on? And how does that translate into sales ultimately?
And what would that partnership look like with Pollinate?
So Pollinate and Social Soup are under the Influence Group. And what that looks like is we're going to be going out to a huge campaign that we ran where 25,000 people went into store to pick up a product, and working with Pollinate, who are a research agency, they're going to do what's called cascade interviewing, where we go out and we start with the people who were involved in the campaign. We ask them Pollinate, ask them a series of, ask them a series of questions about their own experience, how they acted post the trial, how they shared it with friends. And then we get them to tell us some contact details for their friend. Then we go and interview the friend. And we do that 3 cascades down to see how it's travelled through the market.
Really having measurements that can track that, and that is a lot of work, but being able to show that happening in the real world at the same time. We've had some really effective case studies on that where you've looked at test to control markets as well. So what Katie's talking about is individually what's happening in a campaign, but actually overall going, okay, well, we just activated Victoria. What happened within the Victoria market when it was dark in the New South Wales market? So we can sort of look at contrasting and comparing.
Yeah.
So I think really, as Katie said, it's pulling all of those things together to go, what does this mean holistically? And then how do we sort of equate that back to maybe a ROAS measure?
Do you think people within the marketing industry and beyond consider that an agency like Social Soup is working on that sort of level, or do you think there's lots of misconceptions about what you guys kind of get up to here?
What do you think that we get up to?
Well, I just asked the questions. Okay.
I think, to your point, I do think often there is some very stereotypical views of influencer marketing, whether it be on the influencers themselves, the fact that they're only in bikinis, taking selfies, but the types of influencers that you would work with. And I think, to your point, the not just focused on vanity metrics, going, how many impressions did this create, but what actual impact did that happen? So I do think there's still a lot of education to happen out there. That's happening at an industry level from AIMCO, that's happening from a business level for us. And I think it's about, weeding out, probably there is a lot of bad actors out there that still are focused on the wrong things. So I think it is just, the industry and the perception of the industry catching up to each other.